it started in the middle of when I was talking. So I don't want that to happen. So I kind of wait for 15-20 seconds, which is now, and I start. So hang on. Okay. Hello and welcome to this brand new live stream. New day, new topic. But before we proceed, let's please all wave at the screen and welcome. Hang on. I don't want to click the wrong button this time. Lauren K.
Hello.
Nixon. I'm like
I just
the
realised.
stage presenter, right?
I just realised why it's dark in here. I'm just gonna put my light on.
Oh, okay. So we'll have to redo that.
Consummate professional.
Lauren K. Nixon.
And I'm back.
Yeah.
And my hair's doing thing. Oh well. Yeah.
Okay.
As long as
Yeah.
I can see, it's all good.
You kind of okay. So, what? How has your day been so far?
And yeah, not bad, not bad. Been doing my taxes, so that's fun.
I brought out my strawberries.
Yay! did you go on another wander?
No, yesterday I was supposed to eat them yesterday on stream.
Ah.
But I was totally. I mean, it's the edgy wells effect
I see.
where I totally lost track of time and track of what I was doing. I was so engrossed I forgot to eat. So today I shall.
It happens. It happens.
So today, before Arthur C. Clarke sucks me right in, I'm going to open my box of strawberries. And
Yes, I think on the feed yesterday I said it was going to be Jules Verne, and I have no idea why.
oh yeah,
Because
okay,
it's
not
clearly
Jules
Arthur C.
Verne.
Clarke.
Yes. I think the title still says just Arthur C. Clarke. I haven't edited it yet, so let's ask Lauren what's supposed to be Arthur C. Clarke
Ooh, I would go with Space Elevator.
and space elevator.
The Space Elevator.
Oh, the space.
Be grammatically correct.
Yes. Okay.
Since it's not a
Arthur
title.
C. Clarke and the space elevator. That's what we are going to call it. And that's done. Yeah, so you were saying you're what are you sketching today?
Oh, I'm painting. This is
painting.
This is the one I was working on yesterday while we were talking, and you were saying about Hugo, and that made me think of there's this bit with an eye, and they go to the moon, and there's a rocket.
Yes.
So today I'm painting.
That's the 1902. If people haven't checked it out, they should check that movie out. I think it'll be somewhere. You can find it on YouTube or any of the free video uploading websites like Dailymotion and stuff. It's a short movie. It's probably under 10 minutes. It should be because most movies at the time were. It was released in 1902, and it's called A Trip to the Moon.
And if you can't find it, watch Hugo.
Yes, or that. Yes,
which is a very good film.
Yeah, it is. The strawberries are good. Let's begin. This is one of the authors who I have not been familiar with at all. Because let's start from the beginning. If you say, in case of Mary Shelley, I had not heard of her, but at least I knew Frankenstein. And the next day we did Philip K. Dick.
He's one of those guys that you're like, oh, I've never read it, and then you realize that basically everything he ever wrote was turned into a movie.
Yeah. And then yesterday we were on H.G. Wells, who also likewise Trip to the Moon also, and I think I also said the one movie which is based on the Invisible Man, Mr. India. So yeah, so I have watched or read or or at least been exposed
Mm,
to something that was directly, you know, that directly came from the authors or was influenced by them.
mm,
But in this case, was it, for the first time, it's totally new for me.
yeah.
um like, to be honest, I
I
haven't watched 2001 A Space Odyssey, neither have I watched to 2010. um and even, I know we'll come to that later. Even the Clark's belt, I had no idea it was
mm,
named after, because Clark belt, I all that's like the, you just kind of read that in passing when you learn about geostationary orbits and
mm.
geosynchronous satellites and all. But I never went back, and I mean, I just assumed he must have been like a
A
astrophysicist or an
physicist, or
astronomer,
yeah,
yeah. And they named after
yeah,
him, like the others, like Huygens, or the
yeah.
other
This is. I was just say. I
satellites,
think
and are named after
I
scientists.
I thought that this was going to be one of the ones that you'd be most interested in with your engineering background, because
Yeah,
he
I
came up
am.
with so many concepts
But the
that.
thing is, I have not been exposed to his
Mm,
works or his creations, is what I was
yeah, yeah.
telling you. But yeah, of course, it's I've since watching the episode earlier today, I'm really excited and pumped up right now. But I don't have much to contribute. I'll be learning from you.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because I don't. I know more abstract things about him or his work, but I've only come across, in my own reading and watching, I've only come across 2001: A Space Odyssey.
I see. Okay.
But there's loads of the concepts that I knew had come from him, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So we'll just start right away, like always. He was born 1917.
Hmm.
He lived approximately, or exactly, 90 years.
Hmm.
And somewhere in his middle age, he moved from England to Sri Lanka, because uh, it's not because, I don't know if that was the sole reason. But somewhere around that time also, he was increasingly interested in scuba diving, and because
Mm,
he felt, I mean, that was the closest, at least that's what the episode mentioned, that it was the closest he felt to feeling weightless and being in space
mm.
and all that. um
Also, he hated the weather here.
oh yeah.
I
Yes.
mean, they mentioned that several times. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, I can I can imagine that, because Sri Lanka is much even lower than where I'm from, which is Mangalore. And that itself, I know, I always keep saying that, 13 degrees above the equator, that, just to let people know, to give them an understanding, or a kind of a scale of how hot Mangalore can get. and
Mm.
and Sri Lanka is even closer. So yes, and it's an island nation, so I can imagine the humidity and all that.
Mm.
uh, but yeah, he loved it, so good for him. I
Yeah.
guess.
Wouldn't be
um
my. Wouldn't be somewhere I imagine I would do well, but um, I am more primed for an Arctic climate,
Ah. Yeah.
genetically
I mean,
speaking.
I don't like the winters also, but then I feel like that I am I thrive more in
Mm.
the 30s range,
Yeah.
in Celsius. Uh, when, yeah, once it starts going below 25, I kind of start freezing up, and then I'm like, getting cold. So I'm in my comfort zone when the temperature in its 30s.
Mm.
But I am sure in Sri Lanka it's above 40 for most of the year.
Hmm.
And it also rains a lot there, because
Yeah.
of course, it's like, it's in that's the location is in such a way that it both the monsoon as well as the retreating monsoon
Hmm.
uh, kind of goes through the nation.
Gets the best of both.
Yes, yeah. So it has a lot of rainfall in around June when the monsoon is moving towards the Himalayas, and then again in October when it's coming back and moving towards Indonesia, Singapore, and all the Southeast nations. So yeah, a lot of rain. And but I meant to ask, have you ever scuba dived or dived, done any of this underwater
No, no.
exploring stuff?
I was quite late to learn. Well, I learned swimming, but then I had really bad eczema, so I missed a lot of swimming lessons because it just hurt.
Hmm.
So I didn't get my red badge swimming certificate until I was 11.
Ah,
Um,
okay.
so I love swimming, but I'm not confident in the water, and I'm definitely not confident going underneath it. I've never lived anywhere warm enough, if I'm honest.
Hmm.
I did about 10 years ago. I really wanted to go down to Cornwall. Or I can't remember if it's off Devon or Cornwall, or even the Isle of Wight. Well, yeah, that sort of south coast region of Britain.
Hmm.
Like, I'm hoping that the Isle of Wight is near Devon and Cornwall, because otherwise I am betraying a vast lack of knowledge about the south coast of my country, which isn't that far away, really. But there's a couple of submerged towns under the water there, and you
Uh-huh.
can swim over the um, houses and streets, and sometimes the bell in the water is swinging, and there's gives you the rise to the legend of the bells underwater and stuff. So
Wow.
if I ever do
I
learn,
mean,
that's
how,
what
how
I'll.
how long do you think? I mean, long do you know? If has it been submerged?
Oh, it's within historical record.
I see.
I
Okay.
think it's so recent that we know who would have been living in each house. I think.
I
Um,
mean, did it? Was it because of the of the like?
it was climate
If you remember,
change.
yeah. Okay. Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
but it
I
was
was getting
climate
there. I was
change
getting.
before we had a word for climate change. I think
Okay.
so.
Okay. Did you watch the most recent Tom Scott
No, I'm
video?
behind at the moment.
Okay, but I think I shared. I mean, if I if you remember, I tagged you and I said you should go there before the village disappears.
Oh
Uh,
yes, yes. No, I did watch that. I thought maybe he'd had one out this week. Yes, I have been there.
oh, okay.
Um, but when I was a kid. So there's
Ah,
this village on the north. No, it's on the eastern
west,
coast.
east. Okay, okay.
Um, I think. Thing about England is about Great Britain is that the sea works in a circle. So you know which side it's growing on and which side it's losing, and it's usually the east it's losing and the west it's growing on.
Hmm.
So I think it's on the east coast.
Okay.
But yeah, the village is very slowly falling into the sea,
Yeah, yeah,
uh, and it's a real shame for the people who've lived there for generations. But you know
yeah.
that will happen over time. So
Hmm.
the trouble is, you can't. They could. There are things they could do with groins and coastal erosion measures, but in order to save that village, they would put the town that has a lot more people living in it, that's a bit further down the coast, they would put them at risk. So they've got to make that
Yeah,
decision: what do we
yeah,
save this small town, or do we save this
yeah,
city?
yeah.
So
It's a nice video. I mean, maybe I'll leave the link down too.
mm,
I'm sure most people would have heard of Tom Scott.
mm,
He's a very popular YouTuber, but
yeah.
nevertheless, I'll still leave the link below in the description. But coming to swimming, before we move on, at least you swim, right? Because
I used to, yeah.
I don't know how to swim. I've never been. I mean, I may have dipped my feet as much. That's the most I've been in a water body.
Mm,
Uh, because even though I grew up on the coast, uh, be I mean, I the most I played in water was like you go and put your feet in the and wait for the waves to come to you, and then
and
you move
then
back
shriek
and
and run away.
exactly. So
Yeah,
those are the kind of games I did. Never went dipping in the sea
yeah.
waters and stuff. uh and I don't know now. I know a lot of my friends encourage me, because I always say that probably it's too late for me now to learn
No.
swimming and all that. uh, but like we said,
You knew that was coming.
like how we ended yesterday, it's not
Hmm.
yet. So
Not yet.
maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
But as of now, I don't know. I don't have. I don't know how it feels to swim and all that. So I'm sure, like, there must be some. I imagine some, because there's obviously buoyancy even if you don't go under. You
Yeah.
must feel that weightlessness, to an
You
extent,
do. There is.
uh,
Yeah.
when you
Well,
swim.
for example, when I messed up both my ankles when we went to Iceland,
Yeah.
hilariously in the health spa, because it was so warm. It's uneven because it's an actual geyser spa,
Uh-huh.
but it was so uneven that I managed to pull the muscles in both ankles and not know anything about it until the next day, because it was so warm that all my muscles were relaxed.
Mm.
So it didn't start hurting for a while. But when I swam, it took the weight off, even if I was just in the water rather than swimming properly, because I couldn't for a bit. It would take the weight off, the
Your
pressure off the
ankles.
ankles.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
So yeah, and there is a certain amount of weightlessness to it.
yeah. Cool. Uh, so, oh yeah, that's okay. So he moved to Sri Lanka, and yeah, he until the end of his Earth life,
Mm.
life on Earth, he was there. But coming to his writing, he was active between 1940, the end of the 40s, up until his
Hmm.
death, so about 60
Yeah,
years. Um, okay, so yeah,
and of course,
coming directly,
being
yeah.
in England and being of an appropriate age in the 1930s and 40s, he did serve
Oh
briefly.
yes, yeah, he served in the World War.
Mm.
Also, during the World War, he was posted. I think he was in Cornwall. Is that where they mentioned? Was it okay? Okay,
Yeah,
because
there's
I'm
a
not
radar
aware of
station.
the places, the names of places in England. I didn't want to get it wrong.
Honestly,
Again.
I was doing my taxes at that point, and I looked up and I saw an RAF uniform, and he was in a radar station. So my best guess
Yeah.
is Cornwall, but I wasn't listening.
No. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No. It is Cornwall, but I wasn't sure if there maybe there's more than one place, or
Oh,
more
there's
than one
loads,
similar sounding names. Yeah.
but
I'm pretty
but
sure
yeah,
it was Cornwall.
Cornwall.
Um. So okay. Yeah. So they said he prophesized, he, uh, or they were bold enough to say he was the inventor of
Mm.
geosynchronous satellites, because at least he tried experimenting by with trying to bounce radio waves off the
Mm.
moon, but he realized that it was too far.
He had the
Or
concept, but he
yeah,
couldn't create it himself, so he
yeah.
wrote it in fiction.
So I also believe it's not the case of too far. I think there's certain degradation that takes place when, because I'm sure the radio waves that he sent went to the moon and came back, or maybe it didn't reach him.
Mm.
There are various possibilities, right? Because of course
Yeah.
the moon is also not an even surface. Uh,
Mm.
the
It could have bounced off in a different direction if it had hit a
Yeah,
crater.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Or the technology, or his receivers at the time were not strong enough to pick up the signals that came back.
yeah.
So there's a lot of so I don't know if people have still tried using the moon as a satellite. uh, okay, I
It's an
just
interesting concept. It's like
realized
because
that the
it's
moon
there
is a
already.
satellite. Yeah.
If you haven't got the concept of being able to get into space, using what's there already, I suppose, is very
Hmm.
tempting. Um, I was probably getting ahead of myself, but I've always been fascinated by the way he looked at rockets as if they were already sort of obsolete
I know.
for space travel.
Yeah, that part, when I was like, when they said that, I had to, like, just make sure that I heard that right.
Mm,
The kind of disdain that he showed
mm.
to, was like, it's already past, it's past technology, but
I think
we
he
are
felt it
still.
was wasteful.
we are still using it. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
So yes, we'll just, we are already there, so might as well just
yeah.
discuss about space elevators.
Mm,
Because he that I think the novel was is Fountains of Paradise,
yes.
1979, in which he used that concept, which hasn't still become a reality.
Hmm.
But apparently in the novel, have you read it, or
No,
do you know what it is
I've
about? Or,
actually I've never read any Arthur C. Clarke. It's on my list.
oh, got it.
I
Okay.
I had the opportunity to read it, and I went off in a strange direction and read Frank Herbert instead,
Uh-huh.
which is a lengthy diversion that I've not quite come back from yet.
Okay.
Not that they're
So
in any way related.
so even I don't know what the plot exactly is about,
Hmm.
but just the prophecy is, of course, space elevators. And from the visual, when I mean, we have discussed, I mean, not in relation to Arthur C. Clarke or Fountains of Paradise,
Hmm.
but separately as well, we have discussed space elevators in chats and group chats in the past.
Mm.
I recall. um, but seeing the visuals that they showed in the episode today, my first reaction when they showed, one space elevator, when you imagine it, it does not seem like much of a big deal.
Yeah,
But from the visual, when they showed a more than one, like a
like a
system of,
network.
yeah, network of space elevators just hanging in the sky. uh, my immediate thought was, how are we going to continue with air travel now that there are
Yeah,
hanging elevators in the
all of these
sky.
things. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of maneuverability involved. And
Well, the
especially
thing that
now that we
always,
have these drones and stuff, not just man.
yeah,
Yeah, so that could be one of those hurdles that, if space elevators should become a reality, that would be one of those that we'll have to figure out.
yeah. I think one of the things that they usually say with space elevators is, sorry, I'm just keeping an eye on outside. I think somebody's going to try and replace a windscreen rather noisily outside the window, so I apologize in advance for that. Is that you'd build a station up there, and you'd build, places for people to be up there, and I was looking at it, I was thinking, well, that's a really good idea, but how's that going to affect sunlight and crop growth?
Hmm. Yeah,
Um,
that as well. Yes.
I think I can't remember if it's who was behind this one, but there's another one where you sort of had it over the equator. So what it did was shade some of the desert areas, allowing
Hmm.
them to be brought under agriculture, and then the platforms for taking off into space were on this belt of stations around the space elevator. So, but there were breaks in it, so you could fly through those breaks.
Got it.
For
Yeah, yeah, of course. That, I
Yeah,
mean, if you think of it long enough, you can come up with
yeah,
solutions. Because it's not like all the space elevators are just in a line, or all in the same
yeah,
place. You can space it around it.
yeah. Like all
So
of the visuals, they're always like equally spaced, and I'm like, we're not that good, guys.
yeah.
Imagine the amount of committees you'd have to get through.
Yeah, but
I
there's always
also
that
think
sense of,
I always like imagine the way your stomach's gonna do the thing. Like in a normal elevator, you're like, oh, okay, we've stopped. Imagine that, but like Earth to space. You'd just be
yeah.
like pinned against the wall, going, "Oh God, I hope it doesn't drop me."
But when I looked at that visual, my first, it took the analogy I got to that was these wind farms. No,
Mm,
if you remember these, if you look at, you can imagine those windmills that generate, not like, they're not mills, but just power generating,
yeah,
uh, using wind power to generate uh, electricity or whatever. uh, but you know how these farms are, when you look from the top, they're these equally spaced, and there's this
yeah.
pattern, they look pretty.
Mm,
So that was the kind of thing that they showed us in the episode, where they zoomed far back enough, and all these space elevators in a row, and forming all this nice pattern.
mm,
But the technology, I think, that he envisioned in the novel was the space elevator, because the cable needs to be light but also strong enough,
Yeah.
so as to not snap from the atmospheric forces or
Yeah.
anything, even a collision in the worst
And
case.
it needs to stay mostly still as well,
Yeah,
which I imagine it would be very difficult to achieve over such a great length. A
yeah,
great
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, once at least the section of the cable that is outside of the ionosphere, or
Mm.
all the layers of the uh, atmosphere, would be, I think, stable enough. But I assume the first 1000 kilometers or so is where all the problems are there, because there's of course, like I said, there problems with wind,
Yeah.
like atmospheric forces, like rain, humidity, and even like birds, planes,
Yeah.
drones, lot of stuff.
Superman.
Yeah.
Low
So
flying Vikings with hammers,
yes. So yes, so there's a lot of and yeah, it needs to be stable and also last long enough, not need constant repairs, and
Yeah.
we know that it's corroded and now it needs repairs. um but
It's
I
a
think
lot to it's a lot to do, but I love the way it feels possible still. To the
it
extent where
does,
we're like,
yes,
well, you could
yeah.
actually do this.
Yeah, I can see that happening.
Yeah.
At least one space elevator, just for the you know
Yeah.
just to for it's like that thing where we don't need to show off, but humanity kind of
It needs to.
we
We
do
can't
that, right? Yeah,
resist.
just for
Can't
the yeah.
resist.
Yeah, that kind of explains how all the giant monuments, like Stonehenge and all that, like
Mm.
even the pyramids, and we, there was no need for the giant scale of
Mm.
it, but we just did it to prove that we can.
Yeah.
uh, so I'm sure, if we are able to come up with a technology to make of a viable space elevator, we'll we'll go ahead and build, even if it is
Yeah.
just that one, just to prove that yes, we can. um and yesterday, and since we are talking about space science and stuff,
Mm.
I've been listening to this podcast called Aeroholics Anonymous. uh, it's
Oh, I've not heard
run
of that one. That
by
sounds good.
a couple of aerospace engineering grad students, and a curious line that they yesterday they mentioned. Then they were talking about perseverance and the recent rover that landed on Mars.
Mm-hmm.
And during that time, somehow the topic came on to human, the, po- the possibility or the eventuality of a human landing on Mars.
Mm.
And one of those guys was like, the first person to land on Mars has has already been born on
Yeah.
among us. So that person is already here. And
We
that
just have
was
to make the tech. Yeah.
yeah, and that for me was, when I listened, that was a strange way of putting it, right?
Yeah.
When you think of it, it's like the guy or the girl, or the person, the
Yeah.
human who's going to set foot on Mars is already here. We don't know. It could be right now in kindergarten, or maybe it
Yeah.
depends on how the speed of our progress is. Could be in
Yeah.
high school, could be already in college. We don't know, but they're already here. So that for me, it kind of brings the notion of yeah, like I think a few days ago we discussed about we cannot predict where we'll be in 5 years or 10 years anymore, because of
Mm.
the speed with which technology is changing. It kind of brings it into perspective
Yeah.
when you say something like that. That was a very striking line for someone
Yeah.
to say, and I was like, oh wow. Good. Nice that you say it that like that.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
also the nice thing about that is, I mean, give or take 30 years, where it might happen after we, well, or 40, 50 years after we die, we might see it. We might be here when that first person gets to Mars. That's a cool
oh yeah,
feeling.
for sure. Yeah, but also we need to also remember that uh, I mean, it's not. We also need to be grounded, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we sometimes I feel like we tend to get carried away
Yeah, very
with
much so.
what we are capable of, and then we find that it's not as easy as we imagine. But I know that it's something to look forward to, or aspire
Mm,
for. But the fact that even though Mars is a neighboring planet, it's not as close as
as we think it
as the
is,
moon
yeah.
is. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
um,
It
because
takes a while to get there.
yeah, even it takes light 7 minutes to get from Mars to the Earth, and it
Mm,
takes light 8 minutes to get from the sun to the Earth. That means the sun and Mars are almost equidistant to us. So
yeah.
it's as as good as flying towards the sun, and because that, just to give you an idea of how far actually Mars is. Um,
It's pretty
and
far away.
yeah, it is.
It's not like the 7-Eleven down the street that the moon
Yeah,
seems to be.
yeah. So getting to the moon is one thing, but then Mars is entirely something else. uh,
Yes.
and also the technological progress, because they were comparing Curiosity and Perseverance,
Mm,
and it's they're 10 years apart, right? Because Curiosity was in 2011 and this 2021. They were comparing the speeds. And this is one interesting stat that I mean, I know that Americans tend to use miles as a
mm,
unit. So, but I haven't had the time to convert it to metric, so I'll just repeat what they said. uh, and I think the comparison was Curiosity on Mars travels at a speed of 0.087 miles per hour,
mm-hmm.
and the speed of Perseverance 10 years later, with the advances that we made, is 0.094. This is like to the third decimal.
Yeah.
uh, and they also, just so you get a better idea, they also put that into uh, even more perspective. If Curiosity and Perseverance were to be traveling on Earth, and I think they're somewhere in California, so the they used that. They said, if one of each of them were to sit on either rovers and
Mm,
have a race, uh, um, to travel across the state of California, Curiosity would take 1,400 days, and
mm,
Perseverance would take 1,300 days, or something like that. I'm not exactly. So the thing is,
mm.
it's not much when you look at 1,300 and 1,400, but then the Perseverance is saving 100 days.
Yeah.
Uh, so that's
100
the
days where you can
technology.
use that energy for something else as well.
Exactly. Yeah. So even though improving, going from 1,400 to 1,300 does not seem like much, but saving 100 days is also a lot. Uh, in that, when you coming back, just because we sent a rover to Mars, sending a human is going to take much more
Much
from
more.
us. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. uh, so yeah, let's come back to Space Elevator now.
Mm,
So he, like we were saying, to make it, to, like, even he must have seen the flaw, that it needs to be
mm,
strong. And we don't have anything that, or even at the time of his writing, which is towards the end of the 70s, there was no such material that he could justify as can be used for or for a space elevator. So he came up with a new material, apparently, and he said that it was made of a material made from diamond,
mm.
which was kind of half a prophecy, I would say,
Yeah.
because now there exists carbon nanotechnology, carbon nanofibers, which
Yeah.
is not exactly diamond, but both they are both carbon compounds, carbon,
Yeah.
or at least uh, on the elemental level, they are both carbon. Um so there
They're
is some
similar
of it
enough.
has come to.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So from the current research going on, and I think that the figure they said was at least 60 universities in the USA are currently researching or trying to look into the coming up with the technology for space elevators,
Yeah.
and most of them are already experimenting with carbon nanotubes. So that could
Yeah.
be the, if it becomes a reality, there's it's more likely that it is, carbon nanotubes are used.
Yeah.
um,
And of course, this is 10 years ago. So
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So that could be, yeah. We don't know. I have no idea has, what development has taken place in the world of
Yeah.
nanotechnology. I'm sure there has been in the past.
Very much so. I do.
Yeah.
Just, I think I seem to recall some
Oh, yeah.
physicist with a sense of humor created the world's smallest violin
Hmm.
that could fit. I can't remember on the end of it, on the pointy end of a pin,
Yeah.
and
I
still
mean,
be
I've heard of
playable.
it. I didn't know about the violin. Yeah. I
Yeah.
think IBM tends to do stuff like that, where
Yeah.
I think, they. I don't remember when was it, but they did that, the IBM logo
Mm.
using. Okay, I don't want to say the wrong stuff, but whatever it was, when viewed through the electron microscope, you could see the IBM logo. They
IBM. Yeah.
used
That was
single.
nanoparticles, nanotechnology. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They made an IBM logo out of it from the
Yeah.
particles. So that was cool. That's again coming back to the showing off. They didn't need to know that, but they just wanted to show what they now we
What's
are.
possible?
Yeah, what is
Yeah.
possible and what we are capable of, and that was a cool way
Well,
of showing it.
nanotechnology is so cool for many reasons, and particularly medical ones. I
Hmm.
think
Yeah,
being able to help someone with very small, extremely keyhole surgery, and
yeah,
or repairing very fine blood vessels and stuff.
yes, true.
That's very cool.
Yeah, and also uh, a plug for yesterday's episode. The invisibility cloak that they're working or researching with is made of nanofibers.
Mm.
uh, where yesterday, if people are watching, and if they remember, we talked about the where they try and bend light, or at least make light uh, travel longer, so that it feels like uh, the speed of light has been slowed down, and to give you an effect of invisibility.
Mm.
Now, that's
Where they
cool.
make light of light.
Yes. Yeah, that's an author speaking. I chewed on a leaf
Oh no.
of strawberry.
Is it as bitter as we thought it would be?
It's not actually. I was about
We were trying
to
to remember
say
if
that.
they're edible or not yesterday. So.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah. Okay. So that's about space elevators, I think. And what is it? I don't know in which. So I'll talk about Clark's belt. I'm sorry, I don't know in which of his novels he used that. uh, I mean, which he proposed, and he supposedly invented, the concept of geosynchronous satellites, and if he did, it's really cool, because apparently he talked about it in the 40s,
Hmm.
before there was any satellite of any kind, any man-made satellite up in
Mm.
the sky. So that's pretty cool that he was able to imagine uh, um, geostationary orbits and geosynchronous satellites, and think of uh, a way to have satellites up in the sky that rotate, you know along
Yeah.
with the Earth, so that we are able to constantly, communicate with it 24/7.
Yeah.
And I think the concept of the Clark's belt is basically you have satellites all over the Earth in that exact altitude, which allows it to be geosynchronous. Um, and I think that in kilometers, the distance is about 36,000 kilometers up in the sky, at which the satellite travels at the same speed as at which the Earth rotates,
Mm.
which, of course, like the word says, makes it geostationary.
Hmm.
And it was cool that he was able to imagine it uh,
Yeah.
way back then. Um,
Well, I guess being involved with radar stations gave him a sort of the background that he needed
yeah, 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 yeah,
to see that.
yeah. I mean, of maybe he would. I'm assuming he used to spend days gazing at the moon up in there,
Hmm.
and then uh, because being it's sometimes it's a boring job when there's not nothing happening, that you can, there's not much
I'm
communication
not
going on.
sure. I have to say, I'm not sure that during the time he was serving that was ever true.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
yes.
But usually when there's not much happening, you don't have anything else to do, you just wait for more
Yeah.
communication. uh, but my point was, uh, when he was when you, because at least, because even I've thought of this, because like if you are aware, or if everybody's aware that we are only able to see one side of the moon. um, that's because the moon kind of uh, the rotation and the revolution is the same, the period
Mm.
for the moon. And that is the reason why uh, we always see one side, and there exists a dark side which humanity has never seen.
As it
um,
travels around but spins at the same rate as we travel around and spin.
but yeah, thank you for putting
Layman's terms.
it putting it in a better sentence. um, yeah, that's what I was trying to say.
Honestly, I think your sentence was better, but I was just making sure that I understood.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying, because I was just
Yeah.
trying to tell you, or at least tell uh, the people why we yeah, that's stupid. I think
Yeah.
everybody knows that. So yeah, there's a dark side, and maybe that could be from where he got that idea,
Mm.
where because the moon only shows one side, and as it goes, as it moves around the Earth. So he could be, I don't know what how, but I'm just guessing.
Yeah.
uh, th-
It-
Also, just because he was experimenting by trying to bounce radio waves off the moon, that's one of the reasons why I'm just.
It would make sense. I mean, we've looked up with wonder at the moon for a very long time as a
Yeah,
species.
yeah. So, now that I know it, I'm it totally makes sense. It's fully justified that they named uh, the geostationary orbit after
Mm.
Arthur C. Clarke. Makes sense now. Absolutely.
Yeah.
uh, because he was the first one person to imagine it.
I think one of the most extraordinary things, particularly from the point of view of the other people that we've looked at this week, is he lived long enough, or he lived in a time when a lot of the things that he was coming up with happened. So he got
Yeah,
to see
yeah, yeah,
them,
yeah,
which is really extraordinary.
yeah. That's true. He lived up until 2008. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, he saw a lot of stuff in his
Yeah.
lifetime. I mean, going from,
I remember when he died, I
being.
was like, wait, was he still alive?
Wow.
Because when you're a kid, you like everyone old is like really old, and you're
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
oh
Because
wow, I
really,
thought he was one of the classics.
yeah, he served in the World War II. Come on.
Mm. Yeah.
And yeah. So,
Well, I mean, he's
it's,
only a year younger than my granddad, so I thought
wow.
he was much older. or rather was born earlier.
Yeah,
So that's really
1970.
cool.
Yeah, that's kind of. I mean, that's usually the case for people who live up into the 90s, and because
Mm.
we are always like, where after they're gone, when we look back, like we go, wow, he to give you the first example that I can think of is uh, people who are, there's this social media post, I think I'm sure you have come across,
Mm.
where the people who are older than Anne Frank are still alive, right?
Yeah.
And they show this, this comparison, like I'm not I don't want to.
It's one of those things. Anne Frank particularly feels like it should be a long time ago,
Yeah, yeah,
but there are people around who, if she had lived, she would still be here. Very
exactly,
likely.
yes, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think one of the documentaries that I think I recently watched on Netflix. I must have, I think I talked about it. uh
Probably.
yeah, I forget the name, but they interviewed people who were born in the same year or around the year, around the time of Anne Frank, uh, and the fact that they're being interviewed means they're still alive and they survived the
Well, either
Holocaust
that or we are in a book by Philip K. Dick right now.
in an alternate universe.
Where the dead can still speak to us.
Yeah. So the fact that I mean, if you go back and if watch the documentary, I don't want to give out spoilers and stuff.
Mm.
It is really hard hitting, because of the one thing is the survivor's guilt.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff to uncover, so I'll not go into it. So it's some of it is not, I mean, from the production point of view, I have my criticism and stuff, but the interviews are worth watching.
Mm.
uh, so finally, 2001 A Space Odyssey.
Mm.
uh,
Stanley
that's
Kubrick
his,
film.
yeah. That's I believe his most popular piece of work. Uh, would you?
Yeah. I should have been aware that that was Arthur C. Clarke, but until I watched the documentary this morning, I had forgotten that he was part of the team. And obviously,
Uh-huh.
we always go, oh yeah, that's Stanley Kubrick, but
Yeah,
loads of people worked on it, and Arthur C. Clarke was one of the major people in the creative team.
yeah,
Um, and it was him who was coming up with all of the technology in it, the
yeah,
video phones and the communication stuff, and Hal himself, the computer that goes mad.
yeah,
Um, he had this ability to look at our world and go, all right, so we've got telephone. How might that improve? Would
yeah,
it be one you could walk around with? Will it be one we can see people on? What if I could improve this? What would I want from it?
yeah,
But yeah, the idea of a computer with neuroses is fascinating.
yeah. To be
Uh,
honest,
I think
even
we touched on it yesterday.
sorry, your voice got. I the last part I couldn't catch.
Oh, I just said we touched on it yesterday.
Oh yes, of course. Artificial intelligence and all that, right? No, I mean, 2001 A Space Odyssey, like you said, Stanley Kubrick is kind of the name that is associated with it. So I completely missed
Mm,
out on Arthur C. Clarke. And maybe even if I admitted earlier, um it's not a name that I had been exposed to up until today.
mm,
But I realized that on the screenplay for the movie, it's they both their names are mentioned. So it's
yeah,
like it was a shared, combined, like a joint project between the two of
yeah.
them. And so have you? I'm assuming you have watched the movie.
I
Uh,
have, mostly by accident. Some friends of mine were going out to see it as part of the Bradford Film Festival. Really lucky, because I live just outside Bradford, and we have the National Media Museum, which has a different name now, which is the National Museum of Science and Media.
Okay.
Oh no, sorry, Pete. He worked there for a while, so it's a really cool museum, and they have loads of archives and stuff. But they also have a huge cinema collection, and they have one of the old, I've forgotten the name of it, one of the big curved screens. You know, they went through this period of making films on curved screens for particular projects, and Space 2001 was one of those films.
Wow. Okay.
So is it Cinemaflex or something? We went to see it, and it was the film that is designed to be on that shape of screen. So they finally had all of the curtains out, and the whole of the room was on this giant visor. And it was fascinating.
Wow.
And we were really lucky because we didn't expect him to be there, but the guy who did the visual effects on the movie, one of the guys who was involved with that was there. So he did a bit of a talk at the end.
That must have been fun.
It was very cool.
Yeah.
It was a school night, so we couldn't stay for the chat afterwards. But it was very cool.
Wow. I can imagine.
It's a good way for considering that film's been around my entire life and I failed to see it.
Yeah,
it was a good way to see it.
I haven't yet watched it. So have you watched the sequel?
No.
Okay, I think the sequel came in 1984.
Yeah.
And then he wrote a total of 4 novels in that series, which is like 2001, 2010, and then I think the next one is 2061 or 51. Let me just check. It is 2061. It's called Odyssey 3, and then the final novel is 3001, the final Odyssey. So briefly, what is the plot about? If you remember.
There's a monolith. You've probably seen and heard the opening referenced in so many things. They definitely do it in Big Bang Theory. It's that thing where you get the transition from ape to human, and the metaphor for tool use, and you've got thus spake Zarathustra with the da 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 da. So it's complete silence, and then this builds this music, and you're looking at this group of apes who are getting really excited about this black monolith, which seems to be emitting something, and they start picking up bones and using them as tools and also as weapons. So the implication being that intelligence was sparked by the monolith. So then you cut to 2001. Where another monolith has been discovered, or a monolith has been discovered on the surface of the moon, and it appears to be broadcasting a signal to Jupiter. And the mission is to go and find out what's going on. And everyone who goes near this thing gets a really weird feeling from it. And honestly, I don't remember much about the signal or why it was there, because very quickly the film became about the fact that their computer had turned into a psychopath and was trying to kill them all.
Okay.
So presumably the rest of the novels are about finding this alien intelligence.
No, I mean, okay. First question. Did you watch it before 2001 or after 2001?
Oh, long after. I was 14 in 2001. So this will be uni for us. So this was like last 5 or 6 years I saw the movie for the first time.
So you're much older.
Yeah.
Okay. So next question. It's funny, like I'm doing an interview within an interview. How was the 2001 the depiction like? Was it realistic? I mean, I can't help but compare to 2015 from Back to the Future.
We were talking about Philip K. Dick the other day. He saw grime in the future. Select people have access to cleanliness. Clearly, in terms of Kubrick and Clarke's vision of it, it was a lot more ordered. It was a lot more structured. Everyone, there was a designer involved in the clothing. It was all very clean.
I see.
The way it was shot was fascinating to show you the technology. So, when there's gravity, why have a box as a room? So, there were rooms that were circles, and you would have gravity boots, or in fact, in this case, Velcro, so you could walk around the entire thing and access different areas in this big circle. And they built a rig so that the camera could follow the woman around it, which was very cool. But you could definitely see there was a... You know how in the 70s there's that sort of aesthetic where it's the futuristic aesthetic. You haven't quite got to the 80s where everyone in sci-fi is wearing tinfoil. But you've got that sort of clean-cut lines, white and yellow kind of palette. So in terms of technology, some of it was there. They had video phones. They had... they seemed to have clean energy, which is cool. They clearly had space travel, which we do not have.
Yeah.
So I think it saw further than now. I think probably now I would say that Space 2001 would probably be set in Space 2021. No. I'm not good at numbers. 100 years from now. 21?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a nice number, no?
Yeah. That is a nice number.
Yeah. Sadly, I won't be around.
No, neither will I. Not unless something really weird happens.
Yeah, because it's 100 years. I would have to be in my 130s, so that's definitely not going to happen.
Oh, that's nothing for a hobbit, though.
But we don't know. There is science fiction about that as well, right? Where we, we unlock eternity, or what's
everything
that?
I talk about this week comes back to Edgar Allan Poe. There is an Edgar Allan Poe about this story about this. They find a mummy and they unwrap him, and he goes, well, actually, in our time we just learned the embalming process so that if you fancied seeing the future, you just embalm yourself and off you pop, and then you'd be resuscitated in several thousand years and you can see what's going on.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
a one-way trip of time travel.
Of time travel, exactly. Okay. No, but I meant it's not exactly connected to today's topic, but what are your thoughts on humanity unlocking immortality?
I think we have an expiration date that is controlled by the ability of our cells to reproduce, and the data coded within that, and that degrades over time. So I think probably, I don't think we'll be able to push it up much past where we already have, and I think although I would like to think that I have not already lived a third of my lifetime, I think that's probably very likely to be the case.
Yeah. I mean,
at least
it's not immortality as in not the way we imagine it, right? Because it's not technically against the laws of nature, because there are creatures which regenerate tissue and are able to, in at least our perception of one life, are able to live more than one lives, because they are able to regenerate their tissues. At least they're not size wise, they're not comparable to mammals, but tinier organisms I'm talking about are able to live
the kind of organisms
longer.
we underestimate.
Exactly, yes. I like cockroaches, or even lower, like tardigrades, who are those these tough guys.
Tardigrades are ace. Tardigrades are the best.
Yeah, so these tough guys who just are indestructible tanks on their scale. But it's not like alien to nature. It's there. It's just that will we be able to tap into it, or emulate it or something. That's kind of...
I think if we do, I think it'll be one of those things where the elite can have it, but poor people can't have it, and it will somehow be poor people's fault that they can't have it. I think it's one of those things that...
Yeah.
And also there's the question of, do you really want to live forever? So if we have the technology but only one person in your family can have it, who gets it? Will that person go mad? The things that make life worth living are the people that you love.
Yeah.
But
I'm sure
it's only you,
the technology of regenerating tissue would probably maybe be used to double our lifespan or something. That can be done.
I'm quite happy if, assuming that I was healthy for that length of time.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking in terms of for me to happily live that long, based on my family's genetics, we would have to find cures for dementia, Alzheimer's, blindness from the outside in, blindness from the inside out, deafness, general loss.
Yeah,
of
but
memory.
then, like I said, with the regenerating tissue, a lot of those problems of degrading organs and stuff would not be there
Yeah.
technically.
If you could guarantee that you would be healthy and happy,
Yeah,
then yeah, that would
yeah,
be very cool.
yeah. But then
And
that
with the people that
arises the
get
other problem of resources and with food
exactly.
and stuff. So that's
In
also
fact,
there.
one
And
one
I
of the
mean that's the
sickest.
reason why nature has this population control in place, right?
I just read a really good short story by one of my superstars authors, G. Burton,
Uh-huh.
called The Yellow Room, which should be coming out in the next anthology, which I'm working on. It's coming out next month, actually.
Okay.
And it's about exactly this. Their population is, not to give too many spoilers, it's a really good short story, but their population reaches a point where they can live forever if they choose to.
Yeah.
So they make sure everyone can, and then they go, but where are we going to put everyone?
Yeah.
So they put in a thing where you can choose death if you want to, and some people do. They go, they've lived long enough.
Yeah.
I'm off, or and then some people are put into a lottery. Notably, the people who have less money are put into a lottery, which has no recourse from, and you get this yellow letter that says, "Oh, by the way, for the good of all mankind, off you pop."
Yeah.
And it examines the ethical implications of that. So
Yes.
yeah.
It kind of reminds me of two science fiction movies that I have watched. So I'll quickly go through it before we come back. And one is, of course, the inspiration for the title of this podcast is this Amazon Prime series called Upload, where it's not exactly immortality in the physical sense, but in that universe, the human race has figured out a way to make our upload our subconscious our consciousness uh, into the cloud, wherein after our physical bodies are long gone, like degraded and basically our current definition of death, uh,
Yeah.
once that happens, we are able to upload our entire memories, and up until that point the entire experiences or whatever the whatever's there in our brains, into the cloud, and are able to live in the virtual world. So that's the premise of the series. And the other is the I think the 2015 movie called Downsizing. I'm
Mm.
not sure if you have watched it. It's a Matt Damon and
Yeah,
Kirsten
I've
Wiig.
seen bits of it.
Oh, okay. Where it's again the same, just like Upload, and as well. There's a lot of the capitalism and stuff involved, where
Yeah.
the rich are able to afford the technology, and they are the ones who uh, they want to care for especially the kind of rich people who also feel guilty of in, uh, using up too many resources and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
these people agree, or at least volunteer, because you have to give up your body for it, because the point, I think the point of the movie is you downsize into a tinier version of yourself,
Yeah.
so that you consume fewer resources.
Yeah.
um, and I mean, don't want to give the entire plot away, but that's the from that you can, I think people can figure out from the word downsizing. um,
Yeah. Yeah.
but that I think is very far-fetched science fiction to me, because I don't think that
Yeah.
we are anywhere close to something like that, where you just get into a machine and you at the end of it you pop out as a 6 inch tall version of
Makes me
yourself.
think of it Inner Space, which is a great movie. And the thing that I always thought about with Inner Space was, but like, aren't molecules a particular size.
Hmm.
Our bodies have evolved to cope with air molecules at that particular size. If
Yeah.
we shrink,
Yeah.
there's no way we could breathe.
Yeah. True.
I mean, it's a lovely concept, but like,
Yeah. And
also,
also
if
like
you haven't seen Inner Space, have you seen Inner Space?
no, I haven't. I haven't.
Oh my god, it was one of those ones like Clash of the Titans was always on at Easter. Clash of the Titans, also an excellent movie. There's a whole
Uh-huh.
section that's in plasticine. The Inner Space is you get shrunk. This guy gets shrunk down to do surgery on a particular person, and then of course everything goes awry.
Oh wow.
He
Okay.
ends up in the wrong person. It's a great comedy movie, but it's also quite it is a sci-fi movie.
Hmm.
It has Robert Picardo as an evil cowboy assassin. It's brilliant. It's a good rainy afternoon movie.
Okay.
But yeah,
I'll look it up.
but similar concepts to downsizing,
Okay. Yeah.
except
Um.
that he's not living in the world. He's living in some dude's body,
Yeah. Got it.
so he gets to
Wow.
interact with the biology of it
Oh, that's even
as
smaller
if he is a
scale as
bacteria.
downsizing, because to go get into another person's
Yeah,
body,
yeah,
you have to go really small. I'm assuming
yeah,
like the size of an insect, or even smaller, like maybe microbial. Is that
yeah. He's in a submarine that is slightly smaller than red blood cells.
wow? Okay.
Mm.
Yeah, that's the size of a microbe. Okay. So, but yeah. So, segueing back to our current, I think the start of the episode they talked about how gravity dictates the size of dic- gravity for the longest time has dictated evolution, right? Because humans, I think they said something like if gravity was higher than what it is on
1G higher
yeah
or 1G lower.
yeah
Yeah,
yeah we would be we would we would be uh,
smaller and flatter.
smaller and yeah looking for the right terms. The visual they showed was of a snake, um,
Hmm.
where we wouldn't have we wouldn't our limbs wouldn't be able to support our weight, so we would be more much of our much of our surface area would be closer to the ground. um, and then if the gravity was lower, we would be taller and leaner.
Kind of like Slender Man.
Yes.
When I saw the thing, they were like on Avatar, and I was like, I have seen clips of that movie, and Avatar did not look like that. People,
Oh, you haven't watched Avatar?
no. Um,
I think I've watched it
I
a couple of times. It's
I
not
have
as
a
good as the hype that it
mm,
generated at the time. I mean, most of its hype is from the because of the VFX. I admit
mm,
that was great. The VFX was, of course,
it's a good solid sci-fi plot.
yeah,
I just think it and the way Cameron uses sea creatures as the basis for the alien life
yeah.
on the planet
But I
is a
think
really good idea.
I've
But I think it's really boringly done.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Is
yeah.
what I've heard.
Because I
Uh,
think the plot of the movie is it's like a remake of the 97 animated. What's mm, what's that Native American Disney character? I'm
Pocahontas?
totally yes, yeah. So
Mm,
that's the plot of the movie of plot of Avatar,
I
but with
suppose,
a
yeah.
yeah science fiction background or whatever
Mm.
um, theme.
With body swap and then you've
Yeah,
got the ethics of the one who wants to take all the resources and the one who's actually prepared to look around.
yeah,
And yeah.
yeah. So yeah, okay. That was about the size of gravity dictating evolution.
Hmm.
But yes, the space the 2001 no, or at least the novels were 2001 2010. I think the next ones are 2061 and 3001, which hasn't been made into a movie yet, but will soon be. I think Tom Hanks
Yeah.
was slated to play the character, or at least the main character. I don't know who it is in the movie. um, And yeah, like you were saying, HAL, HAL 9000, the supercomputer, um, who goes rogue.
Mm,
That I think we already discussed in an earlier episode. But the point is, even though this movie was, like they did point out in the episode as well, uh, was written in the late 60s, when the in their words, when the computer at the time was not as, no, or at least was not as powerful as a calculator of
yeah.
today. um, and to imagine artificial intelligence, or even robot, or uh,
Mm,
digital assistants and stuff like that at that time, when
yeah.
none of it was even close to reality, was
Yeah. It's
again
that.
another of his amazing, it's another of his, like, it is credit to his imagination, I'd
Yeah.
say.
To
uh,
see the effects of number and see behavior
yeah,
and
yeah,
personality.
yeah.
Although I will say that humans will pack bond with literally anything. So perhaps we have a tendency to anthropomorphize. So perhaps it's not that great a leap. But yeah, certainly at the time it's
Yeah,
an
like
interesting.
you said, right, initially, when I think initially you said, like, at the time there was the max peak, the peak of technology was what, telephone,
Mm,
and even
television.
television. Yeah, television, even though it was not as common yet, I
Mm,
think, because there was monochrome. And uh, but to imagine artificial intelligence, that's I think was his,
yeah.
yeah, that was his big achievement. um so to briefly, I did look at a little, the series of novels. I know you briefly told me about what the first movie was about.
Hmm.
um 2061 Odyssey 3, apparently, I'll just read out from Wikipedia,
Hmm.
involves a visit to Halley's Comet on its
Ooh.
next plunge through the inner solar system, and a spaceship crash on the Jupiter moon Europa.
Oh, cool. So they actually do finally get there.
Yeah, yeah. And
Cool.
the whereabouts of astronaut Dave Bowman,
Hmm.
and HAL 9000, and the development of native life on Europa
Oh, that's cool.
is revealed in this novel, and eventually when the movie comes out. And finally, in 3001, The Final Odyssey, astronaut Frank Poole's freeze dried body is found by a spaceship beyond the orbit of Neptune, and
Mm.
is revived by advanced medical science. This, I think, is synonymous with what you said about embalming and and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Yeah, and the novel details the threat posed to humanity by the alien monoliths, whose
Hmm.
actions are not always as their builders had intended.
Yes.
That's the
And
brief
it's once
synopsis.
again it's using software as yeah, as well, software degrades over time as well. So
Yeah,
it's the software has gone mad.
yeah. Is that also the, I haven't watched the Matrix movies as well. Is that all something, anything
Hmm, sort of. You need to
okay.
watch those.
I need to watch those. Yes,
You keep
I
okay. We keep saying this thing where you watch movies and I read books, and I think it's just that I haven't watched Batman. I watch a lot of movies.
no, I did say yesterday I haven't watched a lot of science fiction.
True,
Uh,
true.
so this is one genre that
Yeah.
is, I am totally. I mean, in both in terms of books as well as movies, I am completely alien to,
Hmm.
and every day I'm discovering new content. There
Yeah.
is a lot
To
of
an,
stuff.
to an extent, I'd say that The Matrix is a continuation of that.
Okay,
Uh,
because
I
I
was
tried,
thinking,
I did
what's this
try
one?
watching Matrix a few years ago,
Mm,
and I felt it was. I mean, I did not wasn't able to sit through the movie, to be honest,
hmm.
uh, because there was nothing to, I at the time. Maybe now, with this fresh
Mm,
sort of new influence that I've had
mm.
from all these new creators and whatever stuff I've been learning every day, I'll be able to look at when I eventually go back and watch Matrix and any of these, like even 2001 A Space Odyssey and all
Mm-hmm.
these movies, like uh, the other one, what is that, 1931 Frankenstein.
Mm.
uh,
Yeah.
so in this week, whatever, all these books and movies that we have talked about, when I eventually go back and start reading and watching them, I'll be able
Yeah.
to appreciate it a lot better than I would.
I find I have to have something like what we're talking here. One of the reasons I'm drawing is because I don't really like being on video and it distracts me from that. But I do a lot of craft while I'm watching stuff because I loved 2001: A Space Odyssey. I think it's brilliant. I think the story is amazing. I think it's incredibly shot. It is really boring at the same time. Like, it is extremely good, but it is 2.5 hours, I think, of increasing dread. But the
Yeah.
dread is quite slow in arriving. So I haven't watched The Matrix for a while, but it's now like what, 25 years old. Ooh.
Yes.
Don't like that sound.
Yeah, I know.
Not
I
a
mean,
fan
because
of that knowledge.
just yesterday,
Um,
the trailer for Space Jam 2 was launched. Not
Yeah.
exactly science fiction, but still, it has space in it.
It counts.
And one of our
space,
mutual
love
friends, Kelly, shared it with me. And just when I was typing, I was telling her how the effects or the look of this trailer, is the effects and the CGI used. It's so much better than Space Jam 1, and that was 25 years old and 25 years ago. And when I was typing it, I was like, really,
Yeah,
97 was
remember that
25
coming
years ago?
out? I was sick. I had tonsillitis, and I got it on VHS,
Yeah,
and I played it to death because I love that movie.
yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
ever call me doll.
So I was telling her, and at the time of typing, I just felt like, wow, the late
Yeah.
90s was 25 years ago. So
Well, I think because I've been rewatching Scrubs, which I loved at the time, and yeah, it has its problems. It wouldn't be made in any way the same today.
yeah.
But it's a good series, and I had to skip like the first 3 episodes because although it's funny and it's good, it was so slow. I think we've got used to shows having a lot more content in them.
Yeah, I think it
So-
also has to do with YouTube and
Yeah.
these
It has
platforms,
to
newer
grab your
platforms
attention.
like Instagram
Yeah.
and TikTok, and so we're used to these fast cuts,
Yeah.
and this shorter content where a more complex story is told in a shorter
Yeah.
period of time. There are short films now, 20-minute films. So when we sit through a
Yeah.
2.5 150-minute movie, we are like, it's the same story could have been told, because I think we have had this conversation
so
with,
much shorter.
in relation to documentaries as well.
Yeah.
The Cecil Hotel,
One-
I think, where we discussed.
I don't know. I think that was exactly the right length because it allowed you to.
I know.
Yeah. Well, because I'm more of a theatre background, so
Yeah.
it allowed you to appreciate almost in real time
Yeah.
the dangers of making assumptions and how those assumptions crept up on you. There were some
True.
bits that were slow.
Yeah.
I will admit.
No,
Probably do
but
it in one
that's
episode,
you're right. Sometimes you need that space, to flesh out and tell you the story. To give you I think that's the reason why the Snyder cut of Batman v Superman is getting so many reviews, even
Yeah.
though it's like a 4-hour movie, because everybody is suddenly appreciating it, because even despite it being that long, saying that now finally we get what this actually the plot is.
The Hobbit movies. I loathed the Hobbit movies. I
Yeah.
loved the first 20 minutes, and then they went off and they did a bunch of things, and I was like, you've got no reasons for these things. They're not in the book,
Yeah.
and you haven't justified them on screen. And then I watched the director's cut, and I was like, they justified them in this, but it was too long for
Yeah.
release. Gotcha. And there's only half an hour longer. I mean, it really wouldn't have cost that much. Bloody
Yeah.
studio decisions,
Also,
though.
with the whole Lord of the
Poor old
Rings,
Peter Jackson being blamed for all of that.
the Lord of
come
the
in-
Rings trilogy also, right?
Yeah.
People tend to joke about it, like most of the movie is just walking, just going from.
Most of the book is just walking, in fairness.
Yeah, but
I mean, it's a very accurate representation of the book.
but when you
Except for Tom Bombadil, which any Lord of the Rings fan will go, but where's Tom Bombadil? He was, he should just be there.
Okay.
We're still waiting for him.
that's the
Miniseries,
character that did
just
not
in-
make it to the screen.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
I haven't read the book, so I don't know what you're talking
It's on
about.
your list. It's on
It's,
your list, but I can't make you read it in a month because you'll need longer.
oh
You can read
yes,
one of the
yes.
6 books that is the book in a month.
It's like the people who haven't read the Harry Potter books but have read the only watched the movies. They don't know who Peeves is or who Professor Binns is and
Mm.
all that. And yeah, so I get what you mean.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, like you were talking about the Matrix, the CGI, and uh,
Mhm.
when I tried watching it, I just kind of felt like it was like slow, like you
Uh-huh.
already pointed out about other movies.
Yeah.
Like not much was happening, and that's the reason when I felt I didn't feel the urge to
Yeah.
sit through entire movie. But yeah, I should give it a second shot. I should go back
Yeah.
and try. Anyway,
I,
uh,
I don't, in fairness.
uh,
Once I make my mind up, I'm like, nah.
so I guess that's about it. But
Mm.
any closing thoughts on Arthur C. Clarke? Uh, Outside of I know that you've watched
Yeah. Yeah.
2001 Space Odyssey, but any of his other works or any short stories that you have read and you're inspired by or anything?
I, I've been inspired by the results of his work more than I have by his actual work. It's
Sorry
one
about
that.
that. I think somebody's car alarm just went off.
Oh.
Yeah, you
But
were
yeah,
saying.
I think I've been more inspired by the sum of his works than anyone in particular. Because I mean, it was only like 4 years ago I saw 2001: A Space Odyssey. So I think for me, his legacy is in everything else that's come
True,
after,
true.
and not just in fiction, particularly in science.
Yeah, in
Um,
space science especially, like it's
mm,
like yeah, whatever. It's almost like he said it, and then the space science community has been working to make it a reality
yeah,
in a way.
yeah.
When you
In
look
the,
at
yeah,
space elevators or the geosynchronous orbit
the example
satellites.
that always comes to mind is, when did Star Trek TNG start? 1988. So
Mhm.
I don't think my mum started watching it until I was a bit older, but it was on TV when I was very small, and then by the time I left university, we had handheld computers like they had on TNG,
Hmm.
and it's like seeing that. It must have been extraordinary. It must have been very irritating to go, but just a bit further, and we can have space elevators, guys.
Yeah,
But yeah, yeah,
but
very
he
cool.
did live to see a lot,
Quite
even
a lot of
though
it.
not
Mm.
space the elevators. The rest of it, he I think of course, we landed on the moon.
Mhm.
Um, we were able to send rovers to Mars
Mhm.
uh, in his lifetime. So yeah, uh, it's nice. I mean, that's I think one of the things like you pointed out, something that Philip K. Dick was not able to. Um,
Yeah, to fully appreciate.
yeah,
Yeah,
so that's cool.
yeah, it's very cool. I think
So
next week
yeah,
is next
so we are not
Monday.
going live tomorrow.
No,
So that tomorrow,
I have gardening. I have gardening
yeah.
to do.
So it's a week. It's a weekend for all of us, everybody.
Yeah,
Um, so what are we doing next? On
I think
Monday.
it's Isaac Asimov. So robotics,
Okay.
the 3 laws of robotics.
On Monday we are doing. Is it Monday, right?
Mhm.
And and it's the same time.
Yep,
Will be
Monday
okay.
until Thursday, because there's 8 episodes of the miniseries, and well, we're halfway through.
We're halfway through. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So that brings us to the end of today's live stream slash podcast. You will find the links to. Oh wow! When did you do that?
Sure.
Right
Well,
now?
we were talking. Yeah,
Oh wow!
there's
That's
a
amazing.
spaceship in her eye, because we were talking about
Yeah.
space, and
I've
so
been sitting
it's not
on
bad.
making a drawing. I mean that just reminded me just to
Mm.
of having. I have a picture which I've been wanting to make of an astronaut, uh, in which it's very similar to what you just
Mm,
did. So that's why I was like, it's really pretty. Sorry, I forgot to compliment.
that's all right.
Yeah.
It's all right.
It's always the thing where it just I'm not stuff that I'm not
You
used
were
to
excited
talk to
about it.
people.
That was fine. It's all good.
In hindsight, after the call ends, I'm like, that person asked me how I am doing, but then I forgot to ask back, and I always
No, it's
feel
all
so
right.
guilty of
Nah,
stuff like that.
it's
I'm like,
that's communication. It's fine.
I know, but it's still basic manners and talking
Yeah, I'm not
communication.
good at those. So
That's something that I always overthink about after the fact that after the communication happened. Anyway, so yeah, this is I've been wanting to draw this of a space suit
Mhm.
and the reflection of the Earth in the helmet wisely.
Cool.
Yeah,
Or
uh,
maybe on Monday you can do that while I'm
yeah.
wittering about
I've been wanting to
politics.
have draw that sketch that as a gift to Emily
Hmm.
on her birthday in June last year, and that's how bad I am at planning and
If it makes you feel better, out of sight, there is a blanket in production for my friend Christina and Ed's son William, and it was supposed to be for when he was born. He's now 1.5,
wow.
so I wouldn't
But it's
worry
still
about.
tiny. You can, I mean,
Oh yeah, yeah. I
he can
mean,
use the blanket.
he'll be fine. He'll like it till he turns into a teenager and hates everything. So
Okay.
anyway, sorry, I interrupted saying where you could find us online.
Oh yes, you will find the links to Lauren's social medias and the websites and stuff in the description as always, and mine as well in the description of this episode. Yes, down below, down. Thank you for tuning in wherever live on Twitch, or you're watching this on YouTube, or you're listening to this on any of your favorite podcast platforms, um, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or wherever you're listening to this or watching this.
It'd be hilarious for the Spotify people who've just heard us discuss a painting they can't see.
Oh yeah, that's unfortunate. Do tune in, or check out the episode on YouTube, and for the
Uh-huh.
last part,
Yeah.
where if you want to see what Lauren has painted, or at least even in the previous
Yeah,
episode she has been sketching. There's
not
a
that good. It's
cute
fine.
train engine that she sketched, and she hasn't colored in yet.
No,
I suppose.
no, it's on my list.
Okay,
Maybe for
so she will
tomorrow.
be doing it in the future. Yes, that's the one. So yeah, if you want to see that, that's an added incentive for you to go on
See
YouTube and
my GCSE level art.
yes. And during the this week, if you have come across this the on YouTube and you want to watch us live, you can tune in into on Twitch and catch us on Monday at 3 p.m. Central European, 2 p.m. UK, or is that how you say the time zone for your country? Like Central
Current
European, what is it called?
Central European. I have no idea. We're currently on BST in the UK.
No, yeah, I mean, like German time is called Central European. I wanted to know what your
Ah,
time zone is called, because I just end up
well,
saying 2 p.m. UK. So
in winter it's GMT, which is Greenwich Meridian time, and
yeah,
in summer it's British Summer Time, which is BST.
so now we are on BST.
Uh-huh. As of last week.
Okay, or I can just say 2 p.m. UK, right? It's better.
Yeah, people will know what you mean.
People know what you mean. Ah, yeah.
You
Okay.
can just look up online what time it is, or on your phone what time it is in the UK, and
Yes.
set an
Yeah.
alarm for that.
So yeah, 3 p.m. Central European, 2 p.m. UK, and 1 p.m. Universal Standard Time. Uh, so yeah, that's it.
Cool.
It's
See you
been
guys
yeah
on
one, and
Monday.
we managed to restrict ourselves to less than 90 minutes this time. Yay!
Yay! Yeah, we got a bit carried away yesterday. Sorry about that.
Yeah, so over 2 hours, and anyway, that's it. Okay,
Okay.
bye
Bye.
bye. Ending stream.
Ending recording.